Welcome back to our exciting first session showcasing research of digital society and research group members on AI literacy. So I'll start with sharing, fingers crossed it works. Here we go. Over to you.
Hi, hello. I'm also that I'm from the Manchester Fashion Institute, and my research interest lies in digital fashion innovations. I have been working in the area of workflow prototyping, digital pattern tracking for the last few years, and I have been leading an ARC network project called Digital Fashion Network since September 2023. And when it comes to AI application in fashion or fashion design, fashion manufacturing, I'm quite new in this area, not an expert. And what I did and what you also probably do when you want to know about any area of knowledge, you carry out literature research, right? So I have started doing literature research last year and still continuing with it. And this is what I have summarized based on my findings. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, I have changed my one. Okay, so this is what I have summarized based on my literature broad area of AI application in fashion discipline. And as you can see, the broad areas can be grouped as natural language processing, which can be applied for conversational shopping, AI stylist, AI chatbot can be used by the consumers and the fashion buyers, sometimes by the retailers for an application of computer vision in form of AI for visual search for smart shopping, like use of smart mirror that probably you have seen in a few retail shops, trend forecasting, virtual reality, etc. And predictive analysis that can be used. I'm still on the previous slide. Okay, predictive analysis where the AI can be used for trend forecasting, demand forecasting, and also sometimes identify a recommendation on styles. And last but not the least, the AI application is in fashion manufacturing. And when it comes to application of robotics in fashion, AI can play a key role to teach the robotic tools to work or to complete any specific task in, for example, cutting, sewing, or assembling, or material handling, etc. Now I'll just show next slides. Let's move to the next slide. So just show you a few examples where AI has been successfully applied for co-ideation in fashion design. So this is the work done by the colleagues from Taiwan, Kim and King. They applied Mid-Journey to develop fashion designs, and they found that the application of AI tools like Mid-Journey increased the work efficiency significantly. There is another tool, another example of work presented by colleagues from our department, our institute. That AI can be, generative AI tools can be used for fashion branding. And on the screen, you can see the model images that has been enhanced and improved with the help of AI tools. And here the work from Brian from University of Alabama. He applied or used AI tools in fashion teaching, and he observed how the students can utilize AI tools like Mid-Journey to enhance their learning. And he found that the designer can leverage AI not only to expedite ideation and just reading out his code, but also to explore broader, more inclusive aesthetic development. So it's already been proven that AI can play a big role in fashion design and other branches of fashion disciplines. Now, I have started working on developing an AI literacy toolkit as a part of the activities of this. And we had a away day this week, and I just started brainstorming that what could be the element or component of an AI toolkit, AI literacy toolkit for fashion professionals. First of all, the element could be to the information or a guideline on how to find the right tools, because there are plenty of tools emerging every week on the internet, on online market. So when it comes to AI literacy from the user's point of view, the key guideline would be helpful to know how to identify the right one. And second thing is to use them, and most importantly, the prompt engineering, what Sam was mentioning this morning. So prompt engineering is quite important, because the output or AI generated work, the quality and efficiency is depending on the quality of the prompt. So learning about prompt engineering would be quite helpful. I think that would be a key component to implementing the AI literacy toolkit that I'm thinking of for the fashion professionals. And the other component, I think, would be the information about AI and its interconnection with ethics, how ethically the AI tool can be used when it comes to generating creative work like fashion designs. And what else? I'm just I put few question marks there, because I need your input, your suggestions, and that's why I'm here today to collect information that what else can be included in the AI toolkit of fashion professionals. That's all from my side. Thank you. Thank you
very much.
Hi, my name's Adam Cook. I work at the School of Digital Arts. My official title is Senior Lecturer Technology for Good. I'm currently a PhD student, if you want to choose to the next slide. PhD student, part-time. I'm a part-time student in a very rapid, complex space. I initially put a proposal in centered on AI, working with young people. But I was told that the technology wasn't accessible at that stage. So we sort of pivoted a little bit and turned into kind of a new emerging space of working with young people and data and trying to understand data and some of its complexity. So I work with young people. I'm a participatory designer. So we'll work with young people in terms of co-designing with them. So yeah, central theme is critical data literacy. I'm part of the speculative technologies group at SODA. I'm part of the storytellers and machines group at the same time. Excellent. Gotta keep up. So the data system, data ecosystem brings surveillance into the intimate space of a child's life from a very early age. It tracks their gestation, their sleep, their play, their talk, learning, and much more in terms of the apps that we use, the devices, the platforms and the services. Just most of them are free. This is Livingston and Firth in 2017. Next slide, please. And as part of this, I've got to catch up at the same time. So yeah, so I'm really interested in this idea of youth are assembled through their devices and some of the platforms and some of the media as algorithmic assemblages for the benefit of powerful others. So they're often excluded from some of the conversations. So part of the workshops that run on the PhD run around 4 to 5. We're talking about using different methods, ethnographic methods from prototyping methodologies and design research, or research through design methodologies at the same time. Next slide. So in a way, I am a designer. I've got a fine art background. I consider myself an interdisciplinary designer, so I like working with people and cooperation and co-designing. But to design is also to propose possible and alternative futures, which Bergendorf said in 2006. So this idea, we're in this space, but what's coming, and what are some of these emerging technologies that we're finding quite rapidly in the classroom space, on the children's Xboxes, Kindles, how they're navigating some of these complexities as young people. Next slide. So again, yeah, I'm a participatory designer. I like to empower the people I work with. I've got an emancipatory approach which aims to empower research subjects, involving them in the research process. So very much see these young people as co-designers with me and making active changes that benefit those that partake. I've worked in lots of different spheres in social spaces. My school for the PhD is the social. I'm in the social workspace, and my supervisors come from both social work and computer science at the same time. So I'm in this quite interdisciplinary space that works quite well for me. Excellent. Trying to see if I can read that. Just catch up. So yeah, I'm talking about I came across this pivotal quote quite early during the PhD, which talks about data literacy as a set of abilities to be able to read data, to manipulate data, to communicate with data, and produce data of their own, which allows one to use and produce data in a very critical way. So that idea of actually using it as kind of a material became central to my position and also the young people that I work with. Next slide. This came around because I got called last minute to see if I could get to Athens in Greece within a week. They had a workshop running. It was a central, its central theme was about migration. As we know, Athens had 2.5 million people visit through this space in a short period of time. And I went and worked with some young people about some of these themes that were affecting these people working in these spaces. And a bunch of data scientists had dropped out last minute, and somebody just messaged me and said, can you come, can you talk about data with young people? Like, yeah, let's go. So I arrived, and the first thing that we did is try and get some open data sets. So I talked to the young people, we said, right, what data can you pick up? The very next day, they came up with, this data set which captured 450 people that had died on the migration journey within a year and a half. So I was hit with some of these ethical questions working with these young people. I was getting upset by some of the language that was being used around the space at the same time, and also just some of the realities of the data sets that we were working with. So you can see this terminology such as drowning, exhaustion, murder, blah, blah, blah. And on the side, I didn't mean to say blah, 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 there. But on the side there, there's additional information or contextual information. And some of this has just been scraped from media, but it's been entered into this data set and it's been published. And we begin to think, how can we use this as material? What other languages could be used? And also, how can we interface into some of that data? Next slide. The young people that I work with, we began to use some very simple open source coding, which was done in P5.js or processing. I was a big fan of. And they began just to explore and expand on what this data set. This is actually interactive. The video won't play. I'll try to send it over the presentation. So this idea that you could unpick some of these entries that were vast, and to get some of these young people that, 18, maybe in the first year of their study, to begin thinking about some of the complexities that lie in this data set and how to unpick it as a material, and where they're going to display that in the city and communicate it to other people. These are people with no coding knowledge. These are people with no knowledge of data before they've started that journey. I moved on. This is the first PhD workshop that I ran with young people. It took place in Eastern Europe in 2021. And I was really interested in, I entered this space that was rapidly moving. 2-3 years before, I was told that AI wasn't accessible. You need, to work with a computer scientist, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly, with conversation with a colleague, somebody said, I'll just have a look at AI Dungeon. AI Dungeon was a single-player, multiplayer text adventure game. It's still running now, but uses artificial intelligence to generate content and allows players to create the shared adventures. It was using ChatGPT 2 model. One of my participants called it dumb fiction, which I really liked. I think it's still dumb, but some of its dumbness is obscured by the vast amount of data that are in it. I was on Teams, so COVID had shut down the workshop. I was meant to travel, COVID shut down. So we joined up on Teams with around 50 or 60 young people that I was working with. And one of the first comments that come through of this entanglement with this new AI software was, it's going weird. And my reply was, is weird good or bad? And they said, weird, weird. We were sure to see. And part of the language around AI is that it's weird, or that it's magical, or that it's fantastical. And I think on the next slide, we go through to maybe explore some of that terminology. So the terminology, this paper is called Enchanted Determinism. Fantastic one from Crawford and Campello. Talks about how large language models shield creators from scrutiny and accountability, leading to a form of techno-determinism. The combination of predictive accuracy and mysterious or unexplainable properties result in myth-making about deep learning's transcendent superhuman capacities. And we understand this from our daily interaction with the advertising and the recruitment into some of these AI systems that now kind of disappear because they just arrive on my app with sort of no prior warning. So next slide, please. We can play the video here, actually. So I tried to do this as Persecution, just go fast and furious, but it's a PDF. Trying to get it all done in 20 seconds. This is one group's response. It does have audio, but we can't play it at the moment. I was very interested in this idea of vertical cinema and animation, so we would work into the shape of the mobile phone. Thank you. Back to the slide, please. So we suddenly realized, I think it's the PDF, yeah. So deep fakes have the potential to merge, combine, replace, and superimpose various forms of media to easily produce synthetic media that obscure the distinction between real and fake information. Of course, we now know they're considered highly problematic in the emerging political landscape. I work on a course called Future Media Production, which students are using these and entangled in some of these services and some of these activities on a daily basis. Next slide, please. This is coming back to the secretive nature of algorithms and whether we can understand them. The secretive nature makes it difficult to assess literacy about them. I love this quote, this idea of can we actually understand them when the people who program them may not fully understand what they're releasing. Next slide, please. We suggest that mobilizing data, this is one definition, mobilizing data literacy should focus not only on technical knowledge and skills, but on showcasing real life examples of algorithmic work in different contexts relatable to the ordinary experiences of the young people that use them and are affected by them. This is one interface with data that somebody made, so they're using a mobile phone. I brought some kits, by the way, if anyone wants to talk about data and some of the toolkits that I've been using. They're very difficult to get through an airport because they look like a wired bomb. So yeah, I use these small micro computers. They're relatively cheap, £30–40, relatively low power. The student that was using this was just using a device to pick up RFID information. So this is the information you'll use to get into the building. You log in on your MMU card. It also could be something you pay to get onto the metro with. And I've used different sensors to allow students to use physical properties to interact. Could be touch, it could be haptic, it could be a card that they've got in the pocket, so they hack their university card to be able to read and trigger information. So a lot of what I've been doing is trying to think of different sensors. I have things, actually we'll probably be able to explore them on the next slide. Yeah, so here's my sensors toolkit that I've used before. So I've got everything from distance sensors, some of them are touch-based, some of them could be heat-based, they could be picking up signals, how far away someone is, and then they're interacting with data that they may have created themselves. It might be about their 24-hour pattern or their daily life as young people, or it could be a huge data set about migration with 3,500 entries. Next slide, please. So again, here's another definition: being aware of the use of algorithms in online applications, platforms and services, knowing how algorithms work, being able to critically evaluate algorithmic decision making, as well as having the skills to cope with or even influence algorithmic operations. And I think that last one might be the most difficult of these. How do we influence or be able to manipulate them in terms of our stories and our narratives that the young people want to talk about. In this background slide, I had a person of Slavic descent, so I was working in Warsaw at the time, and they were talking about the eye tracking didn't work with the shape of their eye. So they began to think about whether they could modify some of the algorithms that are happening in the software. Again, these are young people that haven't coded before. I worked with them for around 3 or 4 days before they begin to explore some of these situations. Excellent. I'm traveling back a little bit now, so I'm also really interested in the role of making and how we interface with algorithms and the physical, tangible properties of that. Tracing data back to its material condition and context reveals the quality and character of the work and the people who make it, which I think is really important. I work with clay a lot. I worked out in North Wales, and a friend said to me, let's just go to the River Dee and explore, really exploratory research. And we went down with a ceramic artist and we dug some clay up. And then we began to think about this as a material and what pollutants might sit in this clay, etc. And then we baked them. We bought them as having like an anthropocentric center, and was talking about the different layers and sediments and pollutions that were happening there. And I left that a little bit, but it's recently returned. So if we can go to the next slide, trying to remember what's in the next slide. So at the moment, I've also got these really small kits that I think are fantastic. I've only just recently bought them. But again, might be quite useful. And they are. This is a digital image that's printed to the screen. When it's printed, it doesn't need any power. Yeah. So it's been sent, and they just sit there like a little badge, and I could post a new image to it. And I really like this idea that it's been detached from its power source. And these ideas are little flexible screens. I can run them off solar. Not sure where they're going yet. So that idea is maybe working with young people to visualize what an AI system or an algorithm is using clay, and maybe using some sensors to pick up information that could be sent to some screens. That's where I am. It's very exploratory at the moment. I hope that's the last. Yeah, that's the last slide. Thank you.
So next is the theme of the 3 of us, and it kind of links really beautifully to, Adam, what you mentioned about misinformation and the role of AI in misinformation. So we're going to be talking about visual AI literacy and global misinformation politics. And this is us as the team. You can see us here, but just as a reminder. So yeah, do we need to present ourselves?
We can do it quickly.
We can do it quickly. So I'm Adi Kunzman. I'm the co-leader of DISC, and I also do research on visual AI and visual misinformation, as well as environmental impacts of AI, which is going to be my next slide.
Yeah. So I'm Sam Martin. I'm a digital sociologist. I also work at Oxford University in UCL, looking at big core data analysis and also visual AI literacies with this team.
I'm Jessica Elias. I'm a lecturer in criminology and sociology, but my main work is around digital semiology and theories of power and harm in the digital context. Okay, so visual AI imagery. I think behind us is probably some of the examples that we're most familiar with seeing how the outputs look, especially sort of being people on the internet, maybe with social media platforms. This is the predominant sort of AI slop kind of imagery that we see. Be that the sort of creation of images of people that would never be in an image together, doing an activity like taking a photo together that would never have happened, or the more sort of like fantastical imagery that we've got on the right, especially like this idea of a child made of garlic on a motorcycle. I mean, I can only imagine the prompt that was used for that. But this is sort of the main way that we sort of see these images sort of like cropping up in our sort of everyday lives on the internet. And what we see within these are sort of like this discourse between the idea of like the deepfake crisis, which is, what we see especially around like political misinformation, but also potentially this sort of new world of creativity that can be unlocked using artificial intelligence.
So now to a little bit more sinister use. So as much as we love talking about creativity, there is also a lot of you probably call them real life applications of using visual AI to misinform, to incite hate. And I'm just showing here several screenshots of media coverage of three latest political kind of cases of political violence, political conflict, Russia's war in Ukraine, Israel's genocide in Gaza, and then the events in India recently, where generative visual AI was used to illustrate, fabricate, misinform, and we kind of deliberately not labeling what AI has done or how AI has been used. This is just to signal that the political field of visual AI or AI generated images is really vast, really growing, and really, really explosive, because you think about the implications of those AI visualities on the communities that are involved, global audiences, global diaspora communities. The implications are absolutely massive.
So towards the end of, or at the end of last month, we held a public engagement panel with Tactical Tech based in Berlin, and then Full Fact and the National Literacy Trust based here in the UK. And this conversation was all around the idea of the misinformation curve, specifically around visual AI. And we had some really great sort of insights that we took from that panel. So we've got some of the quotes that are here. And some of the really sort of main issues that we saw coming up from this was, especially the sort of the middle quote that we got from Irene Picton from the National Literacy Trust, where she was talking about that they're finding with a lot of young people that they are sort of completely disengaging from any sort of news media or political media because their trust has been completely eroded through AI information, that they feel like they can't trust anything. And that obviously has quite long-term impact that we sort of see in the future in terms of as well, like eroding political literacy in young people in the long term. But there are particular issues that we need to sort of address that are brought up by sort of our expert panel. And this is a video that was sort of is available on the DISC YouTube channel. Sorry for a shameless plug, but that we are sort of continuing to disseminate and feed into our work as well around this.
And so in our work, which involves both public engagement and kind of outside university expert, as well as research, we're asking, okay, so what is visual AI literacy? And like I mentioned earlier in the opening, we're thinking about AI literacy and critical AI literacy. When it comes to visual AI, so there is media literacy, absolutely, which is about being able to critically evaluate images, bias, think about representation, misrepresentation, stereotypes, as well as critically approaching misinformation and fact-checking and not believing everything you see. And that is covered generally by media literacy. But what we're arguing is that none of these separate literacies are enough. We need to bring them all together. So we've got media literacy, we've also got digital literacy, which is very big and has been growing quite a lot. And it's about critically evaluating digital information, understanding how it works, and whether it's understanding the algorithms themselves, the work of AI itself, but also understanding the power of tech. And understanding that a lot of the digital stuff is not neutral, is driven by very powerful big tech companies. Understanding how tools are designed, and not necessarily from the technical point of view, but actually what are they designed to make. And I love, and you're so useful and so perfect, but also thinking about, okay, if we design these tools this way, can we design them differently? Can they be made differently? Can we undesign the bias? Can we change how these tools communicate? So that's digital literacy. We also have visual literacy, which is absolutely crucial and not exclusive to AI and not new at all. Visual literacy is about being able to find, interpret, as well as create images, and being able to critically analyze what you see and kind of provide a visual diagnosis. I think that was Sam's words yesterday, which I found really, really beautiful. So we kind of like do a diagnosis to what we see rather than accepting it as a given. Does it look real? Does it look fake? Why do we think it looks fake? But also thinking about what are the implications? Why is this fake image there? What is there to do? So that's the broader skill of visual literacy, which is absolutely crucial for thinking about visual AI literacy. But also plugged into that is political visual literacy, which is a very specific term developed by Yoav Golai, who's going to be giving a presentation in one of our online events in 2 weeks. And political visual literacy is about the ways in which Visual truths develop and unfold, and this is a quote from his work, into practices and technologies of visualization. So it's both about how do we represent things politically, what is seen as truth, what kind of representational technologies, what kind of ways of seeing are developing there in political context. And for me personally, that resonates very much into the work that I'm currently doing about the use of AI in times of political conflict. I'm doing it in cooperation with Rebecca Stein. And we specifically look at fact checking, not as a practice of visual diagnostic or kind of analyzing and making sure that you receive the information correctly, but fact checking actually how it can be weaponized, how suspicion, I'm not sure whether this image is real, or that kind of disengagement that Irene was talking about, where young people don't believe anything, how suspicion can actually become a form of political weapon, and saying none of what we see is true, disregarding it just because it might be AI generated. And basically how AI literacy is becoming this war zone of the war on whose truth is seen to be believable or whose truth is subjected to fact checking. So all of these together and more probably come into how we, and I think we're only beginning to think about what visual AI literacy might look like. So as part of what we're doing, we're also organizing a summer school. Our digital politics summer school is an annual event that's been running for 5 years now. This year is dedicated to visual AI politics and politics of visual AI. And this is precisely to unpack those questions of what are the uses of generative AI in political context. What does it mean? What does it mean in various global settings? So the school is taking place in 2 weeks' time online, with a range of speakers, with a range of workshops. Some of them are practical, like a workshop that Sam is running about how we can use those visual tools in academic research. Some of them are more kind of critical and research oriented. And we're also doing our really big public engagement initiative around visual misinformation.
And what we're also doing is very helpfully, as you introduced this just before, we're building a toolkit to give people the tools themselves so they can ask critical questions like, well, what is visual AI literacy? Why is it important? How do we detect it? How do we interpret it? And how can we use AI to create kind of things that are less negative and more useful? And also asking things about things like contextual harms, looking at the way that AI kind of amplifies harmful beauty standards, how to see these different, how to spot these different fakes, and also trying to think about questions we can ask people about how their experiences with AI, so that we can understand better how to help them and develop this toolkit going forwards. And it launches on the 25th of June.
Online, as in from the 10th of June, it's going to be available. You can come, you can engage with it, you can interact with it. And just to wrap up, just to say really briefly, what are we doing with all this? So we're obviously doing research, we're doing a lot of research events, but we're also engaging with communities in Manchester, and we're thinking about what is the role of visual AI literacy and what is the role of potential AI-driven misinformation in community cohesion? How does that impact actual communities in Manchester? And we hope to be working more with various faith communities in Manchester in our collaboration with Manchester Cathedral to think, what do people see when they see AI-generated images, and what impact does it have on communities? That's us. Thank you very much. And then very finally, we're slightly ahead of time, by the way, so we're going to finish a bit early so you can have a longer break. So very finally, my own work. So 15 years, I know you're probably a bit tired of listening to me and presenting in multiple hats, multiple things. So this is my own research on environmental impact of AI and environmental AI literacy, which I think is the missing piece, which we're all desperately need. So this is something that was already briefly mentioned by Neil Donovan earlier. And it kind of becoming a common knowledge. So AI isn't neutral. AI actually has quite a substantial impact on the planet. And I haven't just, made this up yesterday. This is known, this has been researched for quite a while. So just showcasing here, first of all, a really beautiful book by Benedetta Brevini called Is AI Good for the Planet, which was published several years ago before generative AI And all the silly stuff we do, like, make an image of myself as a kitten or make an image of my cat as me. Before we started doing all of that, which is an incredibly energy intensive, this book and this work was already existing. And also at the same time, I've been doing, so my own work on digital communication was around how digital communication tools, not just AI, but digital communication more broadly, has environmental footprints. And the footprints are not just carbon. So I know we love talking about decarbonization. There is much more than that. So there is resource extraction and mining of rare metals that go into every single device, which we tend to replace and throw away quite often. So every single phone, every single computer, every single sensor. And that's at the start of their life. At the end of their relatively short life, made disposable by design, is a huge amount of e-waste. And again, we all know this, and kind of the more of these tools we need, the more data they use, the stronger our devices need to be. So our old phone is no longer working, so we need a new one, and and kind of grows exponentially. So that's the life cycle of all these devices which are required to power AI. We also, of course, AI requires an insane amount of energy. I am not bringing figures. I think some of our speakers this afternoon will have some of the figures. They also vary because they're quite difficult to calculate. So some say is as much as to power a small town in the north of Italy, or as much as to fly 5 airplanes around the world in a year. Separately in my work, and I won't have time to talk about it today, but separately in my work, I'm trying to write about the kind of politics of that difficulty of calculating what the impact actually is, because we don't really agree on the terms of what we're measuring. We don't really know. And the problem with kind of only measuring parts of it allows us to say, my office is completely environmentally neutral because I just switched on my phone or my computer, disregarding kind of the entire. So we need to think about power use more broadly. We need to think about carbon, heat emissions. We also need to think about the impact on water, land, air, and communities. So what is happening now, and having researched that for, like as I said, I've been researching this for several years before AI. So there was this deafening silence around the materiality of digital communication, the environmental impact of it. And then all of a sudden, it's pretty much everywhere. So I put some random screenshots of like what happens if I look on Google Images for environmental impact of AI. Tons, right? So here you go. AI might consume as much energy as Netherlands in a year, environmental costs. So all of this stuff is there. And at the same time, we also have power of AI to support climate change. And there's been so much green glorification of AI. So there was a lot of digital as environmental savior and the key tool of sustainability, and now specifically AI, completely obsessed with this idea of AI as a material and doing what Benedetta Brevini calls mythologizing AI by amplifying the capacity of AI. And it is there, we can't deny the capacity of AI to help understand climate change, improve climate change, model things, but completely ignoring its material impact. So we have this, but then all of a sudden, we have the acknowledgement of environmental cost of AI, which I hear everywhere. So I call it ritualistic acknowledgement, and I literally call it and the environmental cost of AI. And once you kind of see it, you can't unsee it. Every report from university officials to tech companies, they will talk about stuff and the environmental cost. Full stop, and nothing happens afterwards. So it's an empty ritual, which you will see, which doesn't lead to anything at all. And this is the concern. So we kind of moved from silence and pretending like it's not there to saying all the time. And there was no time for me to show the slide. I did ask ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gave me a whole thing about, yes, this environmental impact and that. And even, and then it asked me, very kindly as it does, so which of these are you most concerned about? So I said which of them I'm concerned about, and I said I'm concerned about cost and benefits, and should we? Maybe we shouldn't. And indeed, ever so kind ChatGPT said actually the benefits are for the few, the harms are on the many. Well, it's not worth it. It's like, it was my separate longer talk that they gave. So all of this is there. Now, there is something that we're talking about throughout our research day, and in particular, really exciting work by Matt that's going to be in the afternoon about how we think of AI, like we humanize it a lot. So we think it knows this, and whether, it doesn't, just rehashes the information. But the point of it is that this information is right there. Why then are we not doing much? So there are several things that I'm thinking through. One is thinking about environmental literacy as opening this black box. And first of all, thinking about multiple hands. So rather than focusing on just one, if I look at current research landscape, there are people working on extractive economies and their impact on communities in the mining sites. There are people working on discard studies in e-waste. There are people working on decarbonization and carbon footprint. It needs to be together, and it needs to be a life cycle rather than isolated impact. And there is beautiful work done by several colleagues where they write about disaggregated footprints. So they say we because the footprints are everywhere, we tend to just focus on one, and then it allows us to ignore the rest. Instead, we need to look at them systemically. So that's one form of AI literacy. The other is to understand that the impact of AI is uneven, is not the same with all of us. So most of the benefits are and overconsumption are in the global north. Most of the harms are in the global south, whether it's extraction, whether it's toxic e-waste, whether it's working conditions. So what we should be asking isn't just pros and cons, which is the kind of your neutral model. Let's weigh and then let's decide, and the cons can be mitigated and the pros can be celebrated. Let's think about who is actually paying the price. So who benefits versus who pays the price. And this is a form of social justice, political AI literacy. So what kind of environmental AI literacy do we need? We need infrastructural literacy. This is the term coined by scholars who talk about disaggregated footprints, and they say we absolutely need to understand the infrastructure. So we need to have infrastructural literacy. But also, I claim we need to have social justice literacy and, of course, critical environmental literacy. And then finally, before I stop, I think we should also think beyond literacy. As much as I'm invested in the idea of critical AI literacy, because, we put this day together, we put a working group together, there is something about the whole framework of literacy which says, well, you just need to learn. And then you can do things better, and then we're going to be okay, which delegates or dumps rather the responsibility on the user, the individual, the consumer, rather than the big tech. So it kind of like says, well, if I'm going to be AI literate, and then I can turn off my phone and charge correctly, and maybe even use green tech and buy a fair phone instead of a regular one, and switch off my battery, we're going to be good. No, the footprint of me doing that is unimaginably tiny compared to the footprint of developing a new ChatGPT 5 or Claude 6.0 or whatever other innovations. So the danger, which we need to just work with, we shouldn't disregard the idea of AI literacy, but we should work with this idea that AI literacy isn't everything. It's a tool of empowerment, it's a tool of knowledge, but it on its own isn't going to solve the problems. Thank you very much. So we are a little bit early, so we have 10 minutes for questions, and then we're going to break up early for lunch. So those of us here in the room can network and chat and chill and decompress, and those of you online can come back in an hour and 15 minutes. 10 minutes for questions. We need to spotlight. Yeah, so questions in the room, questions in the audience.
I have a question for you about the research methods that you've discussed before. I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about the way you're using clay as a way to engage with your participants, and maybe even bring an example of what actually happens in the field work.
Yeah, that was a proposal. So I'm proposing this next stage of work, and it came from a conference that I attended recently, which is talking about AI being able to relate to the natural world, to think about their ontological viewpoints. So suddenly start thinking about clay as a material or as a life force and a real living thing, and whether I could converse with it using AI, or possibly we had this conversation today about hallucinations. But also just think about what the mineral context of some of these things are. Really interestingly, I found out that if you rehydrate clay, it makes sound. So I got really interested in this idea that this thing was coming back to life. Started trying to connect this to the idea of water and cooling systems. that AI used to cool the plates, etc. So to begin with, I'm also interested in this, what we call a research through design. So through the making, that you're unpacking some of that knowledge through the production of objects or materials. But also I'm an ethnographer, so I interview, I make field notes, all the same things. So I'm very broad, and it's almost like my approach is assembled and it's quite rapid. I'm a rapid ethnographer. I'll use whatever is in the location. You know, if I'm in a studio in Warsaw or on the River Dee, like, right, what material is in this space and what can we use to document it and engage with.
So is it a way to kind of materialize what happens in the IA black box kind of thing?
It's trying to use it as a material, and I know you might just noticed this. We talked about it, whether AI is immaterial or material. I think it has material consequences, and so I do think. And I started off thinking it was immaterial because maybe 6 years ago everything was synthetic, deepfakes. I'm not interested in deepfakes or all in those spaces. I'm interested in something more than physical things. Maybe it's because I've got a sculptural background. Did fine art, made sculptures, etc.
Thanks.
Yeah. Is there a question?
Can I ask a question about fashion?
Yeah.
So you mentioned the fashion brands aren't really using any traction by using AI and modifying models. And I'm just wondering, do we know that they're modified models? And like, are we being made aware of that? Or as consumers, are we now again having the body shaming stereotypes of models happening at hyper volume?
But I don't know at what extent this is happening. The example that I have shown during the presentation was a case study based on one design studio. So they enhance the image taken from the light model with the help of AI to, use it for advertising, for promotion of fashion. And avatar creation is another area that's being promoted. Also in the software that we have now called Style 3D has got AI tools. With that you can enhance the look of an avatar, existing avatar, morph it, change its size and shape it according to what you can imagine. And when it comes to design, combining the existing idea with with something that you are thinking and to develop. These kind of things are being, promoted, an example, but I'm not sure at what extent it's being used by the fashion companies in commercial context.
Can I jump in with a question? While people are thinking, and I think it's for all of us, mostly though, I will for you and Sam and for Adam, because we kind of work with creative practice. What's your take on how we should think about creative copyright in the age of AI? Beyond, can we safeguard, also can we safeguard stealing of people's creative work? But what is your thinking about the way forward with creative copyright? Whether it's in fashion, whether it's in art.
I think working with some of the young people I do, there's just a huge divide around the use of AI. So within the School of Digital Arts, I teach a module, 1,500 students on it, and AI is like Marmite. We bring it out. Some people have got this, there's an element of futility around it, this idea of it's already got our data, blah, blah, blah. It's also, some people are coming at it from the other angle, is that it's beginning to produce more synthetic data, and this idea that the dead internet. So now everything has been consumed, or some of these data sets have been expanded so big that, what was this? I think there was a quote somewhere around 53% of data outlet on the internet is now purely synthetic, and it's growing and growing and growing. So this idea of now is copyright still an issue? I know it is for individual practitioners, in terms of design, but the scale and the speed of these things has just caught people out. That's what I think.
Yeah, if I just can jump in next, when it comes to fashion, actually, I think there should be some capabilities in the AI tools so that it can guide the users about what can be or what images or styles or designs can be used for training the data set or what cannot be used. For example, when you just Google images on Google platform, it gives you some sort of, a guideline that which are from Creative Commons licenses, which you can use for whatever you want, which one you can't use because of due to copyright issues, etc. I think for ChatGPT or Midjourney, whatever the tools we are now seeing, they should have some kind of technical capability in it so that it can guide the users that, okay, up to that extent, you can use the existing design, or even if you use them for training the database, how do you edit the original source?
I think,
I'll go after you.
sorry. I just wanted to say, when I've been working with creative teams, like with the Cincinnati Opera House, we had an initial meeting where they said, oh, this is fantastic using these tools. But then I gave them time to think about creative copyright, because you've got some really quite involved people who are kind of creating musical scores. They've got all the fashion design, and they've got the libretto as well, like the wording to it all. And I gave them a week and they came back to me and they said, actually, what the tools that you're using, are they open source? If you put some of our designs in it, what's going to happen to it? And then I actually took time to explain to them, and they said, okay, we don't want you to upload anything into this. And I think it's giving people a space to actually think about how their work is being used. And then giving them a way to say, okay, can you use prompt engineering to explain to the AI rather than just freely uploading our stuff. And just really quickly, when I do my own kind of AI art as well, I actually get real artists coming to me and saying, we like the stuff that you do, but can we get your permission to actually use oil painting or watercolor to recreate the stuff that I've done digitally into the real world? And so they're actually respecting my copyright. But then I'm also thinking to myself, well, I feel quite bad because I'm using Midjourney, and Midjourney hasn't actually respected everyone else's copyright. So it's a really strange kind of tension there as well.
I'll jump in very quickly because I have some diffuse thoughts around this. Where just reading the news the other day that I think it was Disney is suing Midjourney and ChatGPT for copyright infringement. Obviously over things like Star Wars imagery, just generic Disney imagery. And for me, it definitely comes down to the idea of like corporate power structures and the fact that it's taken a mega corporation like Disney this long to do something like that. Obviously, it's billion-dollar lawsuits or whatever. But that there's so many independent artists and creatives who do not have that power to leverage money against these massive AI corporations to try and get their own rights over their own work back. And it goes hand in hand as well with being small creatives and having to use social media platforms to promote your own work that inevitably gets regurgitated by AI. And it's this sort of double-edged sword that we're constantly seeing the diminishing power of small independent creatives over their own work and their diminishing ability to assert their own sort of ownership over that. And I have a lot of conversations with arts organisations as well that are very much against using any of these tools at all, because of the sort of diminishing agency of creatives, and that just ethically, that's their organisational stance. It completely mirrors my own as well. So that's sort of like the way that I'm coming from this. So for me, it definitely comes down to those sort of power structures and the fact that, legally copyright, it doesn't protect everyone anyway. And that's been an issue for a very long time, but it is definitely exacerbating and accelerating the issues that were already existing. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I have a comment. I mean, the copyright thing is obviously important for creative workers, but it's also quite important for academics as well. Where I just anecdotally, there was my wife was talking about, someone that she knows who has been contacted by their journal, publisher to sign off on journal articles being submitted to LLMs by a licensing company that's approached the journal. And the journal is basically, and the publisher is like, we recommend you say yes, because you're gonna get a payout one time only. Which is, again, if you think about academic publishing in general, it's a scam and we don't get any money. Except from ALCS, which is a copyright collection, group copyright collection organization here in the UK. But there's, I think, and there's a important discussion to be had about, and the journal's justification was like, well, this means LLMs will have more updated and accurate academic research, and that'll make them more thoughtful, regurgitators and guessers of what is accurate information, right? But then you also have to, contend with the kind of like, well, maybe that's a public service thing, maybe it's good that if they're smarter. But again, also the fact that you are releasing your copyright in perpetuity to your own academic research, as it's gobbled up. So it's hitting all of us just as much as it's hitting more kind of traditional creative work.
Has happened to me even without my permission. Like I saw on the MMU sort of e-repository, because you can check the sources where people found your articles. And increasingly, my most recent one, people are finding it through ChatGPT. And I've never had any sort of license, can this be sent off or anything?
Yeah, I'm not sure how I would be curious to talk with someone about how they're searching the web, because it's unclear if they have that information inside them, or if they're just using sophisticated, like the way they're crawling the web is unique to their own systems. I don't know. Sam, you might
I
know.
was gonna say, their deep research facility is the worst kind for kind of trawling through academic archives and things that are layered and hidden. They'll get around it. I've seen them kind of go past paywalls as well.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Worth keeping this discussion for the afternoon keynote.
Yes.
Ben Mark Carrigan will be talking about AI for academics and kind of see where, and also that duality where we always, encourage to put all our work out there.
Yeah.
Which means, the more the work is out there, open access, the more scanning and grabbing. And eventually AI regurgitation and the likes of Dr. Tim Huntsman there will be.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thanks very much. On this note, we have an hour and 15 minutes for lunch break. So those of you who are joining us online, please come back in an hour and 15 minutes. Those of us here, lunch is going to be in the room next door. We'll try to open the room so we can have more space and chat and decompress. And I also encourage you to go outside and see some sun and fresh air.
Good idea.
Thank you.